Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ball Agenda Review Show. If you didn't know it, we are your world's favorite sports podcast. I'm joined on my left-hand side by Mr. Chinedu Asinogo. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing well, thank you. Ready to talk about football. Let's get it.
Let's get into it. And on my right-hand side, Mr. Mekawani. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. Public holiday today, so relaxed and ready to go.
Have to drink that energy. Happy Workers' Day to all our workers out there. Yeah.
In Niger.
Oh, yeah, that's only Niger. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Niger has too many public holidays, but that's combo for another day. We'll go start off where it's hot, because we're coming in hot today. So, Champions League, we've seen the first legs of all the ties, we've seen the first legs of both ties, and things are delicately balanced. We'll start by putting the spotlight on PSG Man City. I want to get a sense of how you thought, because we haven't spoken since it actually happened, how you thought the first leg went and what you think happens this weekend. This upcoming week, we saw Pep Guardiola play basically the B team against Crystal Palace and get the job done. So now they pretty much sealed the league, so they can really focus on this. PSG still have a bit more tricky in League One, but navigated what they had to do this weekend. And all eyes are on the Etihad Stadium. So I'll take your thoughts first, Emeka.
Some of the first leg, it went how I expected. The first half, I expected PSG to obviously be a danger on the break, and they definitely missed their chances, and they should have definitely capitalized on their good spell, because City didn't dominate the first half as much as I thought they would. I thought they would, like what Bayern did, and how I felt Bayern really, really controlled the game, even though PSG were very dangerous on the counter-attack. So I think PSG definitely missed their chance. But the second half was what I expected the game to be, where it definitely felt like City were, which is kind of what we thought, were just a lot more of a team, a lot more cohesive, a lot less about individual brilliance. You could definitely tell like who I feel was the better coach team, and obviously he's been there Pep has been there for much longer. But it went how I expected. And my only issue with City was, the only issue I thought they might run into was the fact that they don't have a striker, and it always seems like they have to score the perfect goal, especially in Europe. Like it seems like they always have to kind of score the perfect goal, overlaps, and the best work goal. But obviously they got a bit lucky with the goals they scored. But I definitely feel like they shaded it, and I don't think they have any complaints with the result. In regards to what's going to happen this week, I think it's still very, very, not 50-50, obviously, because City are in the lead, but I think PSG definitely could cause some issues again on the break. And those same issues I feel about City in terms of they lack a bit of a goal-scoring threat for me, but just because of the lead and PSG's bottling nature in the Champions League, I think City might just edge it. But it's going to be a really good one. And Mbappe and Neymar are definitely, their pride is on the line, and they're definitely going to come out with all guns blazing. But I think City will just edge it based on having the lead going into the second leg.
Before I go to Chinedu, do you think Aguero plays a part in the second leg?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think
you're being
false nine. I think it's going false nine again.
Okay. I think you're being a little. You're understating just how well PSG played in that first half. They didn't shade it. I remember watching it and really thinking they're outplaying City at their game. City did not look like they could get on the ball at all. And I was so confused because under Tuchel, I never really saw PSG in possession looking so comfortable, looking so dominant. In like you said, we're used to that disjointed nature of the attack really does it, and then somehow they get the ball to them. But it really looked like a cohesive performance in possession. City couldn't touch them. City couldn't keep the ball. City didn't really do anything in the opposition half. And I didn't really think anything changed, honestly, to the second half. I think what changed was definitely because that they're not used to teams that actually will get on the ball like that and say, okay, we're going to make this control the game. But in the second half, I think two things happened. One, PSG are not used to that high level, I don't think, in League One week after week, like high intensity pressing and fast pace of the game. So I think they tired out, which was very evident in that pressing. It just didn't look as coordinated later on in the game. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, I think City still just played the same way, but because they're fitter and they're used to that level of competition, I think they could just sustain it for longer, and PSG just couldn't. Because I don't really think City created that many. They didn't create clear-cut chances in the second half. They didn't really look more potent going forward. Exactly.
Yeah, they just control it. Before they do goals, sorry, I'll just say, like, again, goals change games, right? So, like, that KDB lucky goal. And also, I think, like I mentioned about PSG's mentality, I think they're quite frail, especially in the Champions League. Any small setbacks, I always feel like they're very liable to just crumble. And because of how well they played in the first half, and obviously City improved and they played a quicker tempo. Plus, like, again, there was a bit more purpose in them, what they were doing. Even though, like you said, I feel they do lack that clinical edge in the final third. But I think once that lucky goal went in after how well PSG had played, I think that's kind of really what changed it for me.
Sure, I'll pass it over to you for your take, and then also the Sergio Aguero play a part in the second leg.
Yeah, I think I'll go Sergio Aguero does play parts in the second leg. I don't think he starts. I think Pep is going to stick with that, like Emeka said, false nine. But I think at some point he's going to come on, especially if they still need a goal, and they're chasing a goal. I think Aguero is looking fit again, and no matter what, Aguero is a bona fide finisher. He's done it for years, so he's definitely going to have a role to play. I actually think you guys were spot on in the analysis, but I think PSG actually bottled that game because of how well they started in the first half. Like, they started amazingly well. Their press was very good. They controlled the game. And then they came into the second half, and I'd say something changed in terms of their mentality. They were comfortable. And obviously, you cited, they don't play at such a high level every week. But they seem to be very comfortable dropping back and dropping off the ball. And City face that every week in Premier League. They literally face teams that are dropping back and trying to just, contain them the entire game. And that's what they practice, it seems. So PSG basically played into City's hands. If they had continued pressing, if they had continued actually trying to control the game, I feel like City would never have had a way back. Like Emeka said, they never created any clear-cut opportunities where you say, okay, they should have scored, And then a lucky goal goes in, PSG crumbles. And there's one thing I would say too is I don't think Neymar knows how to, and obviously you can cite remontada or whatever. I don't think Neymar knows how to play as a team player under pressure. I say this because, like, when PSG go 2-1 down, all Neymar is trying to do is hug the ball and take fouls or take contact, if that makes sense. So I feel like PSG mentality-wise, I think they are so used to bottling games, especially on this stage, that when they go down, they're like, oh my gosh, PTSD, let's not go there again.
Yeah.
What went wrong for your generational talent? I'll throw that to both of you.
I knew this was going to come up.
That's not to say it's not a generational talent.
I knew this was going to come up.
Just for context, we're talking about Kylian Mbappe. That's not to say he's not a generational talent. It's just to say, what do you think City did well to neutralize his threat? And what do you think Pochettino might try to do differently to make him a bit more of an influencer in the next game?
I think that game was not set out for Kylian Mbappe to have a big impact. And let me explain what I mean by that. Ruben Diaz was almost man-marking Kylian Mbappe, matched him for pace every single time he tried to get him behind. And if Ruben Diaz was ever beat, Kyle Walker recovered very well. So actually, the main focal point of the attack in that last game was actually Di Maria for the most part, right? And everything kind of crumbled when Di Maria had to be taken off because of the red card. And so I feel like it's not every game that your impact as a player has to be scoring goals. If you make the runs in behind, look at Timo Werner, for instance, he's not popping goals, but he's making runs in behind, getting Chelsea in behind, and then feeding the ball off. I think that's the kind of impact Mbappe will have in next game. He might not be the one to clinch the goals, but I think he's going to drag players out of position enough where someone else, hopefully Di Maria, steps up. And
one thing that I'll just say is I don't want us to shift the goalpost too much, because if your forward does not have a single shot in the game, you can't tell me they're having other impact. Timo Werner misses chances, but he does things. He has shots. It's clear what he's doing. If you're like, there is a very clear, you don't need to do so much analysis of statistics. The forward does not have any shots. The forward has had a poor game. The defense has done a job on them. So before we say he was impacted in other ways, if he has this next game and is similarly anonymous, I think that'll be a big problem for PSG. And that's more what I'm pushing the question towards. It didn't seem like he had any other sort of impact. And it seemed like whatever City did, and I want to see if you talked a little bit about what Diaz did and with Kyle Walker, but what do you think Pochettino can do in the next game to make him a bit more influential? I'll pass to Emeka.
In terms of like the game he just had, he definitely had a bad game. Mbappe sometimes, like we say, I don't like to make it seem like he only works well in space, because it does seem that way at times. But yeah, he didn't have a good game. But to try and highlight that after like Barcelona, Bayern, great performances, getting them to the semi-finals, like it was one bad game against a good team, and I actually think he has very, very big potential to eat in the second leg because of like City being at home and the Etihad again. Like you saw how Haaland went right through, like a lot of times in behind. So that potential is always there. But I'm sure Guardiola knows that as well. After seeing that's literally all they did against Bayern, all PSG did against Bayern Munich was just looking for that spacing behind. So Pep, he's after all these years since he won the Champions League, if you look at the Champions League knockouts, almost every single year he got knocked out was based off someone running in behind, and like so many times teams running in behind. So he's very, very ready for that. But for Poch, honestly, I don't think he can do much else than what they've been doing because he hasn't had that much time to coach the team. And literally how they've set up now is pretty much what you saw against Bayern Munich, and that's all they're waiting for. So
has he had more time than Thomas Tuchel?
No, that's similar times because I think Tuchel came in. No, but I'm saying I'm not even trying to absolve Poch. I'm saying that's how he has decided to set up his team, and maybe I don't know if it's the type of midfielders they have where they don't really have too many ball players like Verratti.
I was just about to say
Verratti and Hustlers. So I think that their setup right now is just to play on the counter attack.
I think they're fortunate that they have Verratti back, and I think the only thing that Poch can really do is to try and fit in Icardi, maybe play 4-2-3-1, have Icardi as focal point to occupy Ruben Diaz, and then have Mbappe and Neymar running off of him. But apart from that, like Emeka said, there's nothing else that can be done because end of the day, if Pep is setting up his team to stop the counter attack, or to stop the runs in behind, then it's only so much except individual brilliance, from Mbappe. So I mean, the only thing Poch can do is maybe have another striker on in the form of Icardi, change the system a little bit and have, because I mean now Idrissa Gana Gueye cannot play, so maybe play 4-2-3-1 Verratti and Paredes or something. It's more attacking than he'd like to, I'm sure, but they need the goals. So
when you talk about the worthy adversaries for Pep Guardiola, the names that come to mind are Klopp, Mourinho, and Pochettino. So I think, especially when you think back to what Spurs did in their great run, Pochettino has, I think, that experience getting past the Guardiola team and this Man City team. So I think it'll be a very, very interesting tactical battle. And I'm just excited to see what they come up with, what both coaches come up with, because Pep typically the second leg is where they kind of let things slip, at least last year against Lyon. Just closing out the game, I think the first goal becomes super important because if PSG get the first goal, then Man City come out a little bit more, and then that potential for the counter-attack is a huge threat. But if City get the first goal, then I think PSG will leave themselves way too stretched, and City might really make it.
Yeah, definitely scoring. I think they're definitely going to score.
And then the other thing is, against Bayern, they scored 3 away. And trying to remember who they played before.
Barcelona.
Against Barcelona, they also scored 4 away. So PSG can score away from home. And if they're as clinical as they were in those 2 ties, then we have a very exciting match on our hands. So we'll move from there to the next match. We're going now to Stamford Bridge. Thomas Tuchel and Zidane aiming to be the first manager ever to win 4 Champions Leagues. And we saw the 1-1 draw. And thoughts on what you think happened this next leg. And I'll just start by saying I think Chelsea just made things a bit more difficult for themselves than they needed to. They should have put that game out of sight in the first 25 minutes. And now really anything can happen. But I'll pass to Mecca first. Get your thoughts.
Yeah, like you said, I was extremely surprised how well Chelsea played because I expected the normal turgid, KG, which it kind of ended up being, but the way they started amazingly well. Pulisic, Werner, they ran Madrid ragged in the first half. You could see like Modric was chasing Mount like it was so bad. Like Modric looked like 60. Mount was just running rings around him all the time. You could just see Modric chasing him in the rain. Yeah, it was quite embarrassing. I have to say, Mount is a super player. But yeah,
N'Golo Kante too.
Oh yeah, Kante.
That was my man of the match, probably.
Kante, incredible. Yeah, Werner has blood on his hands because he had to. I was even hoping for a stick that was offside, but he had to bury that. And I think Chelsea, like they wasted a very very big opportunity there. But yeah, fair play to them. Like Pulisic as well. I just feel like Madrid couldn't contain them, and I thought with Madrid's midfield three, even though we know Tuchel was very good at defensively keeping the ball and having possession, but like I was very surprised that fabled Madrid midfield three couldn't you could tell like they had nowhere near the legs to cope with likes of Mount and Kante, which we thought would happen with Madrid and Liverpool because Liverpool had the legs in midfield, but Madrid had the superior quality. But in that instance, the quality was dominant there. But with the Chelsea, the first 20, 30 minutes, it was all Chelsea, and they definitely should have killed the game. But that's where again the heritage and that experience and having a world-class number 9 that's really just the difference. And on the day, like Benzema actually looked like the best striker like on the planet in terms of just overall like maturity, hold up play, link up play, and that moment of brilliance to actually control like your first touch is like on your forehead just to volley in such a tight space in the rain, your team 1-0 down at home. Quality, just pure quality. And second leg, I don't do predictions, I'm sure, but I think Chelsea wasted a very big opportunity there, and I think Madrid with Ramos and Mendy coming back, I think they might edge it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on in that in terms of, I feel like Zidane's master plan was okay, hold off as much as not going to the game, but as the game progressed, hold off as much as we can, and then we get Ramos and Mendy back next game. Marcelo is not going to play, and you have your captain back, and so now all of a sudden, I'm edging Madrid to win. But the first leg, I feel like, I mean, enough has been said about Timo Werner and his finishing. Should have put Chelsea 1 goal up. He didn't, and then, like you said, Benzema literally he picked up the ball in so many positions, was driving his team forward so many times. And I remember one very, very good chance. I mean, it wasn't really a chance, it was more of a half chance, and he took the ball and shot and he hit the post, and you could just tell he was up for the game.
Yeah.
But like you said, I think if there's one thing I'll take away from that game is that Modric and Kroos don't have the legs anymore. At some point, Kroos was literally physically walking, and I was like, this is not the Toni Kroos I'm used to, dropping to pick the ball up deep and spraying the passes. I think next season we're going to see a lot more of Valverde and Modric especially. I think Kroos still has it here and there, but Modric is going to be put away or put to the side. And I think Madrid will still edge it this year, and they will still go on to win, but because football heritage.
So you think Eden Hazard returns to his old stomping ground and does some things?
I would say this in terms of tactics. I think Tuchel got everything spot on in terms of how he wanted Chelsea to play, how he wanted them to dominate the game. But I think at the end of the day, we've spoken about this multiple times, and we'll talk about football heritage. They just know how to get the job done. End of the day, and that's what matters. You can talk about tactics. I mean, you look at the City PSG game. That game was not one on tactics. That game was one on luck.
Yeah.
And so no matter how many, things we try to analyze in the game, I think Madrid, end of the day, they have the quality and they've done it so many times that they just can't understand how to lose. So I think they edge the next game.
I'll say if Zidane wasn't Zidane, like I just feel because of how he's like the most graceful player like of all time, but like his team is so like the way he coaches, and if you watch like them at La Liga, they're actually a really hard watch, but like they're extremely resilient. I don't like his team is so tough. And yeah, like they're actually very, very solid, and like you can tell, like they're well coached and well drilled. But it's very hard to watch, and I'm not surprised that first leg, like both teams are kind of very functional.
So we're set for an ISO this week.
Just because of the tension of second legs, second leg semifinals. So the tension is going to make it fun. But yeah, of course, the better game is going to be the PSG. And
no, but you mentioned Hazard as well. Hazard looks sharp and match fit. He looks like he's up for a challenge. So I think, I definitely think I'm calling it here. Hazard's going to have a big role to play in the next game. The people that are going to scare me are people like Vinicius Junior, because he gets a chance, he's going to pull a winner. But when you talk about Hazard, like if your front three is Hazard, Benzema, Vini, I think they stand a very, very good chance to win the game.
Okay, fair. So let's go for.
And think of it. Okay. Last thing, think of it this way: like that was a game where, if you look at their starting 11, it was a very depleted starting 11. Number one, and number two, they barely had control of the ball, and they still managed to pull off, a 1-1 draw. So I think the next game,
they shouldn't have changed. They changed
exactly.
So I don't know if that helps. I don't know if they looked at.
It was also personnel. Marcelo has been playing, but like he doesn't have the legs he used to. They started Nacho at the back as well. Nacho looked out of position for most of the game.
Yeah, that's what they started. They're trying to match Chelsea's 5.
Exactly. So now Mendy's back. Ramos is hopefully back as well. I mean, it's a push for Ramos to be back, but hopefully he's back as well. Yeah. Hazard's back, so it's a more natural feeling to the team. And I think if they're able to get the 1-1 when they are so depleted, then naturally I think they do better and get worse.
Yeah. So thoughts? What's your score? Man City, PSG, Man City at home.
Emeka.
I'm going to go 1-1.
Okay.
1-1.
Chinedu.
I'm going to go PSG 3-1.
Okay. Second leg, Chelsea at home to Madrid.
I'm going to go 2-1 Madrid. Or 1-1 and the extra time, but I'll just go 2-1 Madrid.
Same.
All right, perfect. So move on to the Europa League. We'll start at Old Trafford. United got past Roma 6-2. Lots of curious things happened in the game.
Curious things.
Huh? Say that again.
The man said curious things. They're already trying
Lots
to
curious.
No. There's no hits. Lots of curious things. Roma having to make 3 substitutions.
The game, bro.
A ghost penalty that wasn't a penalty, and just the goalkeeper coming on and having an absolute stinker. But United were just very clinical in the game.
Which penalty wasn't a pen?
That penalty was not a penalty.
No, I'm saying whose team? Like there were 2 pens in the game, isn't it?
Oh, the one on Cavani. That was not a penalty. So, but United got the job done in the first leg. Now it's just a formality in the second leg. So, what did you take from that game? Where did Roma go wrong? Because some of the things out of their control with the substitutions, but it was delicately balanced at halftime. And in the second half, they weren't helped by their goalkeeper at all. But United got the job done. And now the more important tie is the other tie. So we just make this one really short, Emeka.
It was screaming from the first half. It was clear to me after playing Milan, especially, and it was clear to me Roma they're not a good team, and you can tell from the struggles in Syria. They concede like 3-4 goals regularly. They've been thrashed by a lot of the big teams. Atalanta, Juve absolutely destroyed them. So you can tell there's definitely a soft underbelly there. United started better, but after they got the penalty, then they had a decent spell for about 10-15 minutes. But even at halftime, I was just like, there was not really much there that they had to offer. There's no real threat. Dzeko is quite slow, and after they got the goal, they did have a moment, and I was a bit worried, but there was not really much quality from them. Mkhitaryan, Dzeko, there's nothing much there. But what I would say was, you said about the penalty. I've always been told that if you, like the handball, if it hits a part of your body first before it hits your hand, then apparently that's not a penalty,
No, I'm talking about the one.
No, I'm asking. Because they say if it hits a part of your body before it hits your hand,
I think it's like you said, there's some bloodlines with the rules, but I think it was more the unnatural position. I know they, at least I know if it's a shot that ricochets off one part of your body and onto your hand, they typically don't give those. Or if you hit the ball onto a part of your hand, maybe headed down to your hand, they typically don't give those. But a lot of the time when someone's going to the byline to cross, if it ever hits your hand while your hand is extended, typically they give it. So I could see why that one was a penalty. But if it wasn't given, I would also be fine with that. But the other one was just clearly with VAR, not supposed to be a penalty.
About the second half, anyway, like again, I've said this before. I think this is by far the most resilient Man United team since Ferguson has left. We go in behind, no problem, rarely lose games. And once we scored that second goal, once Cavani scored the second goal, incredible pass and finish from Bruno, finish from Cavani, and from there it was just the floodgates open. We played well, we pressed them high. Yes, unfortunately they had tired legs which they couldn't sub off, which was definitely an advantage to United. But the midfield completely, like McTom, Fred, and Pogba coming in from the left, completely dominated and swamped them. Bruno pressing like a madman. Diawara had no time on the ball. It was just the golfing quality was just a lot, and golfing energy and fitness, which is another credit to Solskjaer. He's always said that he wants us to be the most robust and fittest team in the league, and you can see how much of an impact that does have because we're able to press for days, and we have terriers in the midfield that are able to press for days. So just a shout out to Cavani as well, and shows exactly the kind of player we need for next year. I'm tired of the whole pretty boy false nine striker. I don't want that anymore. I want a number 9.
Tony Marshall, call me.
I remember you said that if he doesn't score 10 goals, this is no one better than I. And I told you that was not possible.
Yeah, no, but I have tweets from people like at the start of the season. Like I don't think people expected. Like I think we thought he was an afterthought because we didn't get our biggest. And I thought he would be an afterthought. Not I didn't think he had quality. I just didn't think that was the plan. So I wasn't sure like what if he still had the legs. And if he still had the fitness and
definitely had to prove himself.
Exactly, he struggled with the fitness at the start of the season, but now you can see in the second half of the season, like he's been fitter and whatnot. But credit to him, and I don't know if I want him to stay next year, but I know what I want is that now he has shown me now like
somebody is like him.
I need a number 9. I need a number 9. I don't want any more false 9.
I think Ole has realized that as well.
Yeah,
I think it's very evident that he knows how he wants to play.
Exactly.
So, and the other thing that I would say that was confusing to me was just the mentality from Roma. At 3-2, 4-2, I think you can take that and try to come back. Mm-hmm. Like they've done that against Barcelona. You can take that and you have that heritage. You have that background. The two-legged tie. The sixth goal was what really annoyed me because I think it was 3-on-2. It was some ridiculous something on something that I was like, yo, you're already 5-2 down and there's a two-legged tie. Why is everyone up front?
You know their manager. If you research on Fonseca,
I know what Fonseca does, but that's ridiculous.
Another story man guy. Like so, he's even when before the game was talking about not defending like he's going. Even though they don't have the quality.
That was from the second goal, because Cavani's goal. It was like a 3-on-2.
So
there was, and that's basically playing into United's hands. That's what we live for, right? Is those fast breaks, and then you're outnumbering the opponents, and usually Bruno has the quality to pick out the right pass and the ball sense as well.
Like if you back the boss from 2-1 at halftime and you lose the game 3-2, you love that. That's a fantastic result.
Correct. Literally, start of the second half, they're spacing behind. I'm like,
because it was 4-on-2 for the third goal in the 48th or 49th minute. The Cavani's goal, the first one.
The Cavani goal was that second or the third.
Oh no, he also had another one where the keeper parried it straight into him, then tapped it in. That was
that was the second goal. I'm saying the good finish one. Yeah, the good finish one was your equalizer at the start of the second half.
Exactly, and there was that goal. Spacing behind that you're talking about.
48th minute, I was like, how are there just two defenders behind in 48th minute? What are you trying to do?
And you're 2-1 up.
Another there are 3 centre backs. The wide centre backs always press really high. I don't know if you noticed, Smalling was a lot of the time. If you notice, Smalling was actually almost a right back, right winger. He was actually he had a shot on goal. He was quite high. So if you see the highlight for that second goal, like you said, like Cristante, who is naturally a midfielder, he came and he pressed high stupidly, and he just like overcommitted. So I don't know what their instruction was to like the wide centre backs to press really high and like try and aggressively intercept. But yeah, if you watch it again, Cristante sold himself.
Because once you bypass that,
exactly. And he had Bruno.
It's 4-2.
Yeah, it was done. Done.
Yeah.
So I think I don't need to ask what happens in the second leg. Really,
yeah.
Nothing happens there. But the interesting one was the return of Unai Emery to face Arsenal. Villarreal winning the first leg 2-1, completely dominating the entire game. Arsenal being given a lifeline by a penalty that was never a penalty, which just confuses me with how VAR is being used.
Yeah,
but
I don't know how VAR.
Exactly. Like, I don't know how you see that on replay and you're like, the ref didn't make a mistake there. That I don't even want to say that was a penalty. That's a dive. We'll just call it spade a spade. And Arsenal Arsenal had 2 shots on target. One was the penalty. The other was an Aubameyang chance in the 3rd minute of stoppage time. So Villarreal completely dominated from minute 1 to the end. Higher energy, more confident on the ball. Actually, the injury to Juan Foyth actually really helped Arsenal out because he was a menace going down the right-hand side and coming in. And Emery really got his system right. I think Xhaka did a decent job against Chukwueze on the right, which was pretty impressive, but that's how they got their first goal. Some poor defending from Ceballos and Xhaka between the two of them. And then Leno pulling out a big save at 2-0 to keep it at 2-0. Because if that goes to 3-0, I really think Arsenal aren't coming back. But now it's delicately poised. So I'd love to get you guys' thoughts.
Like, obviously, we're watching a United game, but apparently Emery took off a striker.
Yeah, so Emery took off Paco Alcacer at halftime and brought on Coquelin. So I think that's back to what people were saying about his overly pragmatic style. They're winning 2-0. Arsenal have not had an attempt on target. Arsenal really don't know what they're doing. And Ceballos is on the pretty much got sent off in the 56th minute, but he had already made the change. But Arsenal weren't offering anything at all. And if this was Fonseca, he would have gone to make it 3-4, try his best to finish it. Yeah. And Emery's like, okay, let's take 2-0 and go. And they do that. And he takes off his striker, brings on Coquelin, which is probably even a signal to the team about how they should play. And also probably instructs them to be a bit more defensive, allow Arsenal get a little bit more control. But Arsenal don't really control. Arsenal get a man sent off 10 minutes into the second half, which is when you think, okay, now we have to kill the game. And you let them get the crucial away goal with a man down. I think that there was probably the tie and the poor game management that might mean Villarreal don't make it through. But I don't know if you guys watched it or saw much, and if you want to give thoughts on that.
I watched.
So go ahead,
sorry. I was going to say I didn't watch the game because obviously I was watching the United game, but I watched the extended highlights as well as a bit of analysis. And I will say this: first thing is I'm going to give a lot of credit to the Arsenal youngsters for actually sticking, to their task and being able to rescue the game a little bit. Because, like you said, they go 3-0 down. There's no coming back from that, especially against an Unai Emery side in the Europa League. I think now is really, really delicately poised because obviously Aubameyang's back from sickness, and the team is kind of gaining a bit of confidence and kind of understanding how they want to play with Martinelli down the wing as well. And obviously Saka on the other wing. So I think Emery messed up very, very much, like you said, by not taking that advantage and like driving home the nail and driving home the nail, whatever. By driving
killing the tie.
By killing the tie. And essentially now Arsenal is going to be looking and licking their lips and saying, hey, like we have our top striker back, or not our top striker.
And that was it. You're right. That was a weakened Arsenal side because Aubameyang had to come on. Lacazette was out. It was Xhaka at left back.
Aubameyang's first game back
playing Ceballos. Yeah, so many changes.
So now they're going to be looking and saying, I mean, all we need now is
just one goal.
Just one goal.
Arsenal are probably not going to keep a clean sheet, but all they need is one goal.
Yeah, I just don't think they dominate the game the way they do against Villarreal. I think they go in and they try to be a bit more conservative because obviously that's playing on their heads that they have a 1-goal lead. And so I think Arsenal, you have to go and score a goal. I think they're capable of doing that.
Yeah.
I think that would be very interesting time because Arteta's job's on the line. And you would have been surprised. You wouldn't have known his job was on the line given the lineup that he put out in the first leg, playing Emil Smith-Rowe as a false 9. And I don't know what he has against Martinelli, but never playing Martinelli, having someone who you could deploy as a forward and use the system that you're used to. That was Arsenal's first time ever playing a false nine in a game of this magnitude. I didn't think it was necessarily the smartest thing to do. And then not using people like Pepe or Martinelli who could be more of the focal point or false nine if you choose that system, and playing Smith Rowe. If you look at it, Arsenal's midfielders, I think all competitions, and El Neni's probably skews this by having 3 goals. Arsenal's midfielders probably have 6 goals between them. And so the goals aren't coming from the midfield. It would be different if you had a real goal-scoring midfielder of the Lampard ilk, of the Bruno ilk, that you play there and you're like, oh, this person's a finisher. They score a lot. These people don't even score. So I just thought it was a very curious decision.
How about your boy Partey?
Partey is not a goal scorer. Come on, we know that.
Arteta is just best dribbler in the world. How do you rate him? How do you rate his season?
Madu.
I think his season has been very, very stifled by injury, as we've all seen. When you actually watch the games, very recently he has been very sloppy in possession. And I don't know if it's the players around him making his quality lower, but I haven't really seen anything amazing from him. He is definitely not the worst player, but he's also definitely not the best player. He still looks good in possession, like when he's driving past players. I still think those elements are there. He takes a lot of shots that haven't really worked this season. So I think I'll just say this is still the betting in season. Too many injuries.
Yes.
The systems are being chopped and changed, playing false nine out of nowhere, playing today with Xhaka, tomorrow with El Neni, tomorrow with Ceballos, tomorrow with this person. I feel like there's also no continuity there. So I would probably want to give a more detailed analysis next season when there's a bit more continuity and consistency with what's happening in the midfield.
I can agree with that. I first of all think Arteta is just off-brand Pep, and that's why he's trying to do false nine. You've seen Pep do false nine. He said, me too, I must do false nine. But I think you've made a very good point with Arsenal. I will not be very quick. Not Arteta specifically. I'm saying Arsenal because Arteta shouldn't have a job at this point. But Arsenal, it looks like this season they've been done by a number of injuries to their top players, and whether it's injuries or it's COVID or it's just a streak of bad luck, it seems. And I don't think they have the squad depth when you compare them to a team like Manchester City, that when those injuries, hit, they have,
David Luiz is a big miss.
So I think next season when they can play Tierney game in, game out, they can play Aubameyang game in, game out, they can probably play Lacazette if he's still there game in, game out. I think that, and then Pepe as well, So I think next season will be a more accurate. Sorry?
So yeah, they can finish 6th then. Like next season.
I don't think Arsenal are good enough to finish 6th, at least with this manager.
And
because it's not that difficult. There's United, there's City, there's Chelsea, there's Liverpool. Those teams are already better. There's Leicester, and then the Spurs. That's already 6 teams. And then there's Everton. So Arsenal breaking into that.
Everton, who apparently might get Coutinho.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Arsenal are good enough to be in top 6 with this current squad or this manager.
Yeah. I would want to play them in the final though.
Yeah, it's a one-off game. Anything can happen. If you face Villarreal, you probably get the job done.
I want Villarreal.
Especially given your past. I don't really think that will play that much into the game, honestly. But Arteta's record versus United has been pretty good. But I don't think that will play in a one-off game. I think United probably will be too strong for them with everything around the atmosphere. But thoughts on what you think second leg results will be in United's game?
Probably be a boring 0-0. We tend to do that after destroying.
Will there be wholesale changes, or you think he plays a strong team? Especially given that he didn't have a game this weekend.
Exactly.
Ole doesn't do that. I remember we beat Sociedad 4-0 first leg away.
Still came in, played Bruno.
Started Bruno. So I hope he makes some changes, but it's probably still going to be a pretty strong team with like Tellers coming in. But at least you still know Van de Beek is going to be on the bench, which is sad, but it is what it is.
I think this is one time I'll give Ole the benefit of doubt that he actually makes wholesale changes, especially like Fahim said that the Liverpool game was cancelled or at least postponed. I think now our attention has to turn to Prem for the most part, making sure City doesn't win at this point, like right now. So I think every single Prem game as it comes is going to be the most important game. I would hope to see Van de Beek. I'd hope to see the likes of Mata. I'd hope to see Ahmad as well.
Not going to happen, bro.
So, Ole, please.
What do you think the score will be, Chinedu?
I think it dribble down to like a 2-0.
To who?
Get to United 2-0. Just
Okay.
get 2 lucky goals.
And Arsenal at home to Villarreal.
I think they'll get an early goal. So I think they'll definitely get an early goal to have that 1-0 where they seem like they're going through. So I'm just going to go Arsenal, man. I think 2-1, they know that they got away with murder in that game and they have a very good chance. So I don't think they're going to let it slip. So I think they'll definitely get an early goal. So let's just see how sensible they are in terms of, Arsenal can concede a stupid corner or deflection or Shaka pen. So anything can go wrong. But I expect Arsenal to just edge it. So maybe 2-1 after extra time or something like that, 3-1.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd say 2-1 Arsenal.
Okay. 2-1 means that we go to extra time.
I'd say 2-1 Arsenal. You're right, because it was 2-1. I say 2-1 Arsenal. Arsenal edges it, sadly. Whether that's, or I think it might go to pens. Because it's the kind of game where Emery will get things right defensively. Arsenal will make mistakes, but they can also score. So it's like it balances out, and I think it
So who goes through?
Arsenal goes through.
Okay.
I think Villarreal early goal.
Okay. Again, like we had in the first leg. So we'll move on to Ballon d'Or contenders, or at a stage in the season where we have seen a lot of the season. It's fair to start making decisions on who we think deserves what and who have been top performers across the top 5 leagues, which is typically where we take Ballon d'Or winners from. So
Leo.
Yeah, I will go to both of you, probably give you about a minute each to just go through names, and then we'll talk a little bit about talking about some of them. So I'll start with Emeka.
Let Chinedu go first. I'm actually still thinking about it.
Chinedu, go.
Leo. Well, I mean, mine's going to be not a minute, but I've always been growing up, obviously, as a United fan, huge CR7 fan, and so it hurts me to say this. It really does hurt me to say it, but Lionel Messi is the best player in the world, and that's literally what the Ballon d'Or is. 28 goals in La Liga. I don't know how many assists. I think 9 assists or something unreal. 28 goals, 9 assists. Literally, I don't know if you guys saw the Valencia game this weekend, but his team's down, and with the game that they absolutely need to win, and he steps up and gets a brace, misses a pen but still gets a brace. He's just absolutely playing out of his mind on a team that people say is the worst Barcelona team in a number of years. So I think Lionel Messi is the best player in the world. I think honorable mention to the likes of Kylian Mbappe, who are obviously supposed to be next, generational group of players. And people like Benzema will always go under the table as the kind of season he's had. But I think if Real Madrid win the Champions League again, I think Benzema deserves some accolades. Lewandowski injury has obviously plagued his season, and that's why it's not a clear shout for him. But I think he's going to be up there as well. So in summary, Lionel Messi, best player in the world. I think seconded by Benzema, and then on the podium as well, I put Lewandowski and Kylian Mbappe.
I think what's really interesting here is we're probably in one of the first years ever, if not the first year, where Champions League winner doesn't really dictate who gets that, because the Lewandowskis are out, the Messis are out, Kylian Mbappe, Neymar likely will be out.
Look at KDB, for instance. If City win it, he hasn't been that.
He hasn't had a season that good. Exactly. And if you think about who could get it from City, you're probably thinking Diaz, but defenders don't tend to really do that well in Ballon d'Or. Even though I think Diaz has been better than the season that Van Dijk was getting all the accolades. But
sorry. I don't believe that.
Or mad. Just as good.
I not call Bruno Fernandes here. Sorry. I'm mad. Sorry.
For the best player in the world.
I might miss my words. Portuguese Magnifico should be up there, podium. I'm not even going to hear it, especially if United go ahead and win a European trophy. I think at the end of the day, his numbers are unmatched.
Bruno Fernandes isn't even the best player in the Premier League.
I won't argue with you.
So how do you go from not being best in the Premier League to best in the world?
I said I will not.
Do you think he's PFA player of the year?
Is he Harry? He will be.
Yeah. If it's not Harry Kane, that will be robbery.
Harry Kane has no shout.
Harry Kane is on top of the goals and on top of the assists. If it's not Harry Kane, that would be robbery.
You have to understand that, and we all know this, the Ballon d'Or is not strictly just an individual award. It should be, like, logically, it should be, okay, who is the best player in the world? But it's not. It's not like that. We're talking now about Champions League and how that plays a role. Typically, it's individual accolades as well as team effort and team accolades, right? So Harry Kane does not have a shot for the Ballon d'Or. Bruno Fernandes, if Manchester United continue the way they're going and maybe win the Europa League, I think he has a huge shot.
Okay, fair enough. Emeka, what do you think?
So I have a few contenders. So I mean, the one that jumps out, and like you said, Champions League this year, normally whoever wins it has like a player from there that goes on to win it. And the only person I think that applies to this year is Mbappe, because he's had a great season domestically and in Champions League. And again, with these things, it's all about moments. And history doesn't look back and say, "Oh, he scored a hat trick against a Barcelona."
Hold on, Emeka, I think we're losing you a little bit. You might need to say what you said again or try to reconnect.
To basically seal the tie for them to go through. Scored 2 goals. So my internet is, I don't know. Is it? Yeah, sir.
All right, cool. So while we wait for Emeka to reconnect and sort out his issues, I'll go through some of my thoughts on who I think deserves a shout. I think Messi probably should win it because I think Messi is 4 goals off having a 40-goal season for the however many consecutive season, and 50th free kick for Barcelona. Some people don't have 50 career goals, and that's his 50th club free kick goal. Carrying his team in a very, very interesting La Liga race. We thought let's go running away with it, but it's really going down to the wire, and he's really carrying his team through these clutch games. And so I think he's definitely a very, very huge shout there. I would say Harry Kane. There's the argument that his team hasn't really pulled up trees, but I think on an individual level, when we think about individual awards, Harry Kane, I think it's something like, at least under Mourinho, something like 62 goal contributions in about 60 games or something like that. He based in the league, top scorer, top assist maker as well. I think individually, I would say, is his most complete season. And he had some seasons where he outscored Messi and outscored Ronaldo in calendar year. Say that again?
You can't bottle a 2-0 lead to Zagreb and win Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, so there are things like that. But I think individually, I would say that this is Harry Kane's best season, and has been a fantastic season. Other person that I would definitely shout to that has actually led to team glory, Romelu Lukaku. I think his top goals, top assists, top 6 stats in Serie A. I think he's having a season, that best season of his career, but no doubt, as the leading man and led his team to glory. I think you definitely want to throw Lukaku in there as well. There are people who say things about Bruno Fernandes. I think the impact on Manchester United has been good, and I think if they win the Europa League, I think he definitely becomes a shout. But I don't think realistically he can win it. Like the other people I'm thinking about, I think have had better seasons than him. And similarly, I would say if Fernandes' season is all the way there, I'd probably say Son's season is also there as well. So
I was going to say, I find it interesting that you mentioned Lukaku before you thought about Benzema, and I think.
So I was about to go to Benzema, but let me say, when you said Mbappe is the only one that you would say in Champions League, I think for Madrid winning, Benzema has a good shout for his league form as well as his Champions League form. So that's also someone else that I'll throw in the hat. I think this season Lewandowski has really just done it in Bundesliga, so I don't think he has as compelling a case as last year, and no one else really from the Bundesliga. And then in France, you have Mbappe, but I think it's not as compelling. I don't know how much summertime will play into this with the Euros, but that could also really skew things. I think if people like Benzema won't be at the Euros, but if people like Mbappe have really great summers, people like who else is it? Kane have really great summers. I think they could push themselves higher in that consideration. Well, Mecca, you might have to say what you said again. Kind of lost
Yeah,
you.
no, I was just saying, yeah. So there are quite a few contenders. Lewandowski, like he just was unlucky. He couldn't play against PSG, but he's been absolutely ridiculous this year. Champions League, and when he was fit, league as well. He scored 36 goals in 26 games, and he's on course to reach Gerd Muller's record. I think he scored 40. But to have 36 league goals in 26 games, no matter where you're playing, that is just ridiculous. And unfortunately for him, like you said, he was injured against PSG, so couldn't contribute. So, but I think he definitely has a shout. And like you said, Euros is there, and there's still the start of next season. And sometimes there's that sympathy vote as well because we feel he should have probably won last year.
Yeah.
So he might also kind of have that sympathy vote. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But like I said, I also think Mbappe is a decent shout because he had a landmark game against Barcelona away, hat-trick at the Camp Nou. No one, history doesn't look back and say, they were depleted at the time, they were struggling. He had a hat-trick in that game, scored 2 against Bayern away, scored 1 in the second leg. And then for them to go through, obviously if they win the competition, for them to go through against City, I think he's going to have a massive game away City. So I think Mbappe would be a decent shout. Plus, he always seems to play well for France, and in major tournaments, he's shown that he, especially with his style of play, and the slow nature of international football, I think his energy, his speed, and his directness really works well on the international level. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kylian gets it. But honorable mentions, like you said, to Benzema, I feel he's carried a fairly not average, but a very functional Madrid team, and he's been the focal point, goals, assists, link up, leadership. He's a very very key member for them, and if he happen to win the competition, he'll be a decent shout. And Ruben Diaz for me is another decent shout. He's completely transformed that team, and I don't feel he's exactly as good as Van Dijk, like you said, but I think the impact is relatively the same for how he's completely transformed the City team that struggled, conceded a lot of City goals on the counter-attack, but it's no surprise that all of a sudden this is the furthest they've reached in Europe under Pep Guardiola when they have the solid base, which he's the linchpin of. So I'll say the major contenders for me are Lewandowski. I didn't mention Messi because you guys have already waxed lyrical about him. I still think he's top 2 in the world, if not the best in the world, carrying a very, very average team with academy players.
How can he
Like
be the best player in
the
the
thing
world
that's
in his
crazy
worst
about
season?
Messi is that everyone always wants to say Messi is finished. Like at the start of the season, 5 games in, they're like,
Worst season.
he has not done this is his worst season. And then
But he's
towards the
not
end of the season, you're like, bro, this guy is topping assists, topping goals.
28 goals?
But he's not going to win. He's not going to win it. So I'll say it's between Lewandowski. I'll say Lewandowski and probably Mbappe. Probably the two
I
leading.
think the reason Messi doesn't win it though is because the footballing world is kind of tired of Messi, Ronaldo dominating era, and I think we kind of feel like we've moved past it. Especially because you look at Ronaldo and it looks like he's past his prime. You look at Messi and you want to hope he's past his prime as well. Yeah. So I think we're trying to move away from those two dominating the sport.
Like basketball, like they always say, like LeBron, there's like
narrative.
This fatigue when you're so good for so long. There's this fatigue that they kind of just want to, because it's expected, like you're doing what you're doing, but like they want to highlight that. They're always looking for every small drop off and hoping that this. So
it's why things like in the Premier League, probably a manager of the season this year will be David Moyes or something. Because they're like Guardiola is doing Guardiola things. There's no need to those types of things. Awesome. So I think that gives us a good time to segue into what happened this weekend. So the game was cancelled between Manchester United and Liverpool. Pivotal game in the top 4 race. And for United, just a chance to extend a chance to keep the league still open. But really, we all think City will win. But United lose that game coming off of City's win. City are crowned champions. So pretty big game on both sides. And then just in general, it's the biggest game in England. But the Glazers out. I'm actually not sure if it's a Glazers out or ESL protest, but a protest that meant that fans broke into the stadium, delayed the game, damaged property. This was all over social media everywhere. And I think the important thing to talk about now is, one, when do you think this game will be played? Because of United's schedule with midweek stuff. And also, what do you think this signals? Because I don't think I remember a time where the game has actually not gone on. Typically, the game will just happen and it'll be delayed, but the game actually being postponed to a different day, I think is a big signal. Lots of TV money lost from not being able to show that, and just what precedent has that set? I'll start with you, Emeka.
Yeah, so the reason why it didn't happen, so it probably, if there was no COVID bubble and all those things, it probably would have happened. So that's what they say, that everything was set to go. But I think they infiltrated the changing rooms, the seats, and all these things. So I think the COVID bubble was broken. So that's kind of why it was an exceptional situation where it didn't go ahead. But as a United fan, I'm happy, and their voices have been heard, and I still, people still don't really get it. So I hope I can explain a bit. Like, people say, like, oh, you spent a lot of money. So what are the issues? That's one criticism they've made. Two, they said we never protest when under Ferguson when we're winning, and that's not true as well. There were many Glazer out protests, the green and gold flags. I remember 2010, which was we got to the Champions League final that season, and there were protests that year as well. So in terms of what our issue is with the Glazers, right? It's they're using the biggest, for me, like the biggest club in the world, along with like Madrid and Barcelona, as a cash cow. They have not put one penny of their money into the club. They bought us for 700 million based on loans. Like, they used the loan to buy us as a club for 600, 700 million. And the United as a club are paying back the loans every year. We're in the red every year. We have about 500 million in debt right now. And every single year we're paying from our own pockets or from our own money to service their own loans that they used to buy us so they can make money off us. It makes absolutely no sense at all. We've lost about 1.5 billion pounds under their ownership. They've taken 200 million in dividends. I'm just reading facts here now. 200 million in dividends they've taken from the club. They're just enjoying themselves. I said, not putting 1 cent, not 1 penny, compared to what you see Abramovich. All these guys are not just spending the club's money; they are also investing in the club with their own money. So
I think Abramovich is the top of, like, when you look at owner, and I'm sure there's charts that you see with owner contributions. Abramovich is a very special case. But typically, there is a lot of owners don't tend to put that much into their clubs.
Yeah, but you invest some of your money. You can't buy a club. You can't buy a club for 600 million pounds, 700 million pounds with bank loans, and the club is now paying for that. Like, how does that make any sense? There's no renovation in the club. They say, like, Old Trafford, one of the best historic stadiums in the country, has like leaking roofs. Like, they don't invest in the club. And the biggest thing, like I said, is I think even just the structure and the hierarchy since 2010, the director of football, like, they don't know even what the offside rule is. Like, they don't know anything. They never come to games. All they're just doing is taking money from the club. And I think the fans just want, it's also just about principle. Like, we don't want a situation where there are these guys from America that don't know the game, just making money from the club, not putting anything back in the club. The club is servicing their own debt that they used to pay for the club. And you just want them out. And the ESL obviously was the straw that broke the camel's back. It just shows they have no regard for the fans, for English football, for the league, and all they're just trying to just milk their pockets, really. And that's what it's about. And
how would you contrast this with the situation at Arsenal?
Arsenal is similar, but the only difference is that, like, the ESL showed that as well, that it's similar. Arsenal is very similar. I don't know exactly the ins and outs in terms of like the debts. I don't know if Arsenal, I don't know how much Kroenke puts into Arsenal, but you can definitely tell with the amount of money that Arsenal make, being one of the 3 most successful English teams in history, having the most expensive season tickets, and moving the stadium. I think the loans are almost paid out now. The fact that they don't invest anything pretty much, and they seem to be satisfied with the mediocrity Arsenal are in. I'll probably be as furious as well, to be very honest with you. And you can tell that ESL was almost like a godsend, because they really showed their hand, because they showed clearly what it's all about. And I'm sure, looking at hindsight, that might be the watershed moment that really just made it clear to all these clubs about, like, the ownership and the ownership's, like, intentions and what they want from these clubs, because they're just making money from it. They're just making money from it, and they're not going to sell, because they have
no reason to sell.
No reason to sell.
So what did you think? What would you have thought if the ESL was a means to use that investment to put it into the club?
Yeah, so it's not just about the money now. It's about like I said, the tradition of it, because the principle, because it's the reason why they're doing that and not wanting sporting merit is literally just for money. Because we're making a lot of money now and we spend a lot of money. So as like I said, it's not just about the money, because we make a lot of money. So it's not just about the money.
I'm 100% Glazers out, but the thing here though, and I would, for lack of better words, play devil's advocate here, is I feel like the ESL is not a good thing to say, you know, that's what broke out, you know, the camel's back, because they weren't the ones that kind of pushed for that to happen. They were just part of like this bigger group that decided to go and join the ESL.
He was vice president.
He was vice president, but end of the day, wasn't Perez that was the one that was pushing for everything to happen.
I think the report said it was him and like Manu and Majid were like the chief.
Got
you.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things where like it's been boiling, and now it's got into the boiling point, right? And at the end of the day, something needs to be done. But like we just said, I do not think they will sell. They have no reason to sell. Financially, it's one of the best investments they've ever made in their lives, and until it stops returning an investment, they have no reason to sell. Which brings me to my, if you remember our conversation last week about, you know, who's kind of the most powerful in terms of the hierarchy and in terms of making changes. Is it the fans or the managers or the players? Look at what fans stepping up has done now. Yeah. Just one instance of fans stepping up. If they say, okay, we're going to boycott the games, we're not going to go for any games. The Glazers, they might not be pushed to sell, but they will feel a type of way as opposed to the players saying, you know, I'm not going to play.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone was saying fans don't have any power. I think it was just clarifying the hierarchy. Like, fans broke into the stadium and vandalized property and delayed the game. That's obviously they're going to know about that, and that's going to have an impact. But similarly, if the players decide that they're not going to play, that also has an impact. Like, everyone has things that they can do. But because I'm saying everyone has things. I mean, if we look at
players are too much under like the contracts and everything.
Obligations.
Like, imagine like a game like Man United and Liverpool, and players say we're not playing, but fans like they're under no obligations. They can literally do what they want.
But if we look at other sports like the NBA, when stuff happens, like they're also under contract and the players boycotted.
We're talking football.
There's no difference in terms of contractual obligations.
Culture. And especially for the reasons, like if there was like, because the example that your friend used, what's his name last week, like it's a social issue, so it's very different. But like we're talking, it's like especially this Glazer thing. There's so much money and there's a lot of things going on where players, no matter ESL, no matter what, players will still play because it's not a social justice issue, it's not a racist issue, blah blah blah. Even when it's time when racist issues come, players, they don't even have the balls to come off the pitch because it's just a different mindset. So I think fans definitely are the ones that can hit the pockets of the owners way more just because they don't send pretty much, and players unfortunately they don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say what it signals though is that there's clearly a dissatisfaction across the board in a lot of Premier League clubs that historically have done very well, and there's that push for. I know there's like for instance Arsenal. There's the Spotify owner that's coming up to say, "Hey, I've been a lifelong Arsenal supporter. I want to purchase Arsenal." Dangote, for instance, has thrown his hat in multiple times. It seems according to reports. So now it seems like there's this huge push for Premier League clubs to be owned by people that actually care about the sport. Whether that would happen or not is yet to be seen, right? But
that's the issue.
But it's more of a like because you look at City and you want to talk about investment. You look at City, their owners. If you watched. And I always cite this, but if you watch their All or Nothing, I think that's what it's called. Their owners literally go to games. They literally care. They're like, okay, Pep, who do you want to buy? Why do you want to buy that person? They care about the players. They care about who's coming to their club. And so they're willing. You talk about how they spend 50, 60 million on every defender that they buy. They already know who's coming in before. You know what I mean? They're not just throwing money. They throw the money, but they know where the money is going. The Glazers are not like
if like Glazers sell though, who's so again it's about from frying pan to fire. Like we don't know who's going to buy the club. We don't know what issues might arise. Like would I want like Saudi, Qatari owners that have a lot of human rights, but they you know
exactly. You start to get into larger principle arguments because you can say the principle of how they run the club is messed up, but someone can come in and their money is blood money,
It's not
or
clean money.
or,
Yeah.
how,
or you
or
know,
how they treat people in their
mistreat.
manufacturing in developing countries. Like those things are important. So it's definitely very difficult,
So
and
tricky.
and there's so many facets to it. We'll do the last segment, which is kind of quick hits, and today we'll have two. One is on Spurs, and then the other is on Serie A, and then we'll close it out. So first quick hit. So we'll try to keep it to a minute, as well as quick. Thoughts on Spurs this weekend, and especially spotlight on Gareth Bale, and Dele Alli coming back into things. My quick thoughts are: I think it's very funny how so quickly people just like revising history and saying Spurs look so free post Mourinho, forgetting that they're playing Sheffield United that are 20th, and also Mourinho scored 4s and 7s and 5s, and like they had games where they scored many goals. I just think it's very, very funny that people brought that up and think that there's such a huge, massive change now. But I think it's interesting also that Dele isn't playing. Dele is playing and Ndombele isn't playing. I don't know if that is a signal, because what I heard is a reflection of what the board thinks. So I don't know if that's a signal that they might be trying to sell. I think that would be a very huge mistake. And I think currently Ndombele is way more important to Spurs than Dele Alli. And maybe it's just to raise up his value to get him gone in the summer. But that, I might be reading too much into it after just 2 games. But that was another thing that I saw and noticed. I'll pass to you, Chinedu, for a quick hit.
Yeah, quick hit. I think it was very interesting, like you said, that people had those takes about Spurs look different. I think the one thing that they showed was a bit of energy, like compared to their last few games under Mourinho. But apart from that, it was regular Spurs as we've seen them. Bale looking very good, like almost not back to his brilliant best, but very, very good. He's showing again that he still has the class to be a world-class finisher. But like you're talking about Dele versus Ndombele, I found it very interesting because it looked like it was also a change of system, because he played Højbjerg single DM, and then he played Celso and Dele, and that's a role I've not really seen Dele in. It's kind of like a CM role. He was still like the more attacking mid, but I found.
And playing that single pivot is also something you can do against Sheffield United. There's not much to read into that.
Like you said, end of the day, it's Sheffield United, and they're not going to really offer anything on the other end of the field. So I think Spurs, they still have the same problems they've always had. The players are just at times not good enough, except when you talk about Son and Harry Kane. And maybe Bale now getting up to their level as well. And problems persist, same players.
Cool. Emeka, your quick hit.
Yeah, honestly, not much to take away. Like I said, Sheffield are relegated. Spurs, it was an easy game for them. Credit to Bale for the hat-trick. But yeah, you can't say, all of a sudden the style has changed. Like you can, the City game is more of that's where you can actually test that. And you could see like they literally still sat back. They did everything Mourinho would have tried to, but didn't do it well. So you can't take much from that. But credit to Gareth Bale, just kind of leaves a bit, shows what could have been. Like maybe if he was fitter earlier, if he had maybe a better relationship with Mourinho or whatever. But really not much to take from the game.
Very good goals. Plus, you know what? There's so much from that game that you can. I'm sorry, really quick. So much from that game that you can look and say like, bro, nothing has improved, because Aurier somehow had the best game of his life. And that was because he wasn't tested on the other end, right?
Yeah.
So Aurier, we know he's not a good defender. He was looking like freaking, who can I call? I don't know. He's looking like Florenzi or something, looking like an actual football player. And that's because he wasn't tested on the other end. So at the end of the day, like you said, the Sheffield United relegated, don't have the quality, don't have the legs. They can run riots. That's fine.
Yeah. And then second quick hit to wrap it up, Serie A. For me, very, very excited that at least one of the leagues has been wrapped up. Antonio Conte brings it home. Inter haven't won the league in, I think, since Mourinho, actually.
11 years.
So 11-year drought, 1 point off it last year. This year, getting it done in style early enough. Lukaku playing out of his mind. And AC Milan randomly now in a top 4 fight, which I didn't really see at the start of the season, but injuries and just kind of gassing out. So that the race for top 4 is actually very interesting in Serie A. I think a lot of teams have 69 points, Atalanta, Juve, and AC Milan. So very, very interesting there. But props to Inter for sealing that. Conte adding another league title in another country. And I think the only thing missing for him is just that European title to take him to that next level of being referenced with elite coaches. But I think he's already there. Thoughts from Emeka? Quick hit.
Yeah, quick one. Yeah, shout out to them. They deserved it. Lukaku Lautaro partnership has been fantastic, and Conte does what Conte does. I think he's won 5 league titles in maybe 7 seasons. In 7 seasons as a manager, so he's a league specialist, and not many. Actually, there are not many managers like that anymore. I know obviously Pep is, but Conte is now one of those ones you can put in that echelon. But he just needs that European title to just completely seal that. But yeah, credit to him, and also shout out to Christian Eriksen, who has kind of transformed his career there. I remember in January,
it started from that free kick.
Yeah, exactly, from that free kick against Milan. So there were thoughts that he might go on loan, and yeah, so he really showed himself. And I always thought he was a flaky kind of soft guy, but he's shown that for you to be able to succeed under Conte and Conte's mad style and constantly changing players' positions and just his crazy attitude and how he shouts at his players and is very, very demanding. So shout out to Christian Eriksen. But as a United fan, I'm very, very happy for Lukaku. And everyone that knows me, especially like back in the day when I was the one, I remember World Cup, I was always Lukaku, and I got so much black for it because I know United fans at the time didn't like him and whatnot. But like I'm just so happy he has had this moment where he's literally the best player on a club.
That is mad.
Like a club that like the best leading player for a club that won the league title in a league that is very, very tactically like demanding. And he's really shown himself that he's one of the top strikers in the world, and which is why I always thought I'm happy that he's been able to show that. So shout out to Inter.
Crazy how trajectory goes, because I remember when genuinely Benteke and Lukaku, there was that argument, and I thought Benteke was better than Lukaku at the time. And you just look at how Benteke's career has gone, obviously with injuries and stuff, and where Lukaku is right now. Obviously, there's the age difference, but
yeah,
exactly. So that's cool to see. We should probably do an episode where we go back to the streets, because I remember that the things that streets won't forget. Because I remember that front three of Villa. Weimann, Benteke, and I can't remember. I know Brighton. Yeah, that front three was the bottom half. Messi, Neymar, Suarez. So so we might do an episode on that. But you do your quick hit before we get out of here.
No, nothing much to add. But I guess question is, what really went wrong for Juve? What won the Scudetto 7 times in a row? If not 9, I think. And so what went wrong for them this year?
Are you asking, or that's just what you want to leave with?
It's a question to you.
Okay.
To both of you. I think
transition. Yeah, I think transition. They're in a funny phase of rebuilding / they have players who aren't necessarily part of the rebuild, who have been part of the system from before. And just a quick note on Inter. Very happy for Handanovic, because that has undisputedly been one of the best goalkeepers of the last decade, and he pretty much had nothing to show for it, similar to Harry Kane, but on a shorter time length. So I'm very happy that he has silverware to kind of crown how good he's been for many years. But for Juve, changing coach, trying to figure out the system, still being in that funny transition, non-transition moment, having a team like Inter who were ready for it last year, but took what they learned from last year and built on that. Lukaku in the form of his life, and also without distractions. So for a while, Juve had the distractions of the Champions League and just balancing things across multiple competitions. And Inter have been pretty focused, I think. So there's parts of it that's down to Juve, but also the formidable opponents were just things came together to allow Inter to do that this season, I think. Emeka?
Yes, I think it's just a natural cycle of things. Like the Juve team, like I said, there's transitional period, inexperienced manager, aging players, poor recruitment, and again, just against a formidable opponent who knew exactly what they were doing, had a set system, had no other, no European distractions, a manager that lives for league titles. So just one of those, just the perfect storm for Inter, and unfortunately, the end of the cycle for Juve. So they definitely need Champions League because they were so desperate for ESL for that money, and Serie A with their TV rights and little money, if they don't make Europe with the amount of rebuilding they need, I wouldn't be surprised to see Inter win another one next year.
and them not even be able to sustain some of the big players that they have over the summer. It'll be really, I think Champions League is crucial to not having to do even more rebuilding, because they'll probably lose some players if they can't promise Champions League football. But there we have it. So once again, whether you're analyzing the game, giving your thoughts on social media, or just giving your opinion, make sure that you ask yourself one very crucial question. Do I really know ball? Thank you very much. Good night.